scientists, and God only makes good stuff and not junk, so therefore it must be good design?
It must be good design, and we are just, too simple and human to understand God's grand design, and really it's good, and we just don't understand it. And this is one that is trotted out a lot, and it is one to pounce on. So tell your listeners this. This is very important. As soon as anybody trots out anything like that, what they are doing is essentially repeating the old religious argument that God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, God works in mysterious ways, and it's beyond your understanding, and if everything is good design by default, why would we study anything about biology? That's one of the things that creationism seems to do to me, is that if we already have all of the answers, why would you study it?
Oh, they don't want you to study it.
Yeah.
No, they want to give you the answers. That's the whole point. But I want to get back to why, particularly, the God works in mysterious ways is a lousy argument that you can absolutely hit them over the head with.
All right, talk to me.
It goes like this.
Yep.
They want to sell intelligent design and creationism as science. So it can be taught in science classes in American public schools. That is their goal. And as soon as they say the Lord works in mysterious ways or any variation on that theme, they have just lost. Because if you use the argument God works in mysterious ways, there is no way you could ever make a prediction based on that statement. And that is actually something that even design proponents admit, that there is no way you can make a prediction based on intelligent design. And one of the things that I talk about in my book is what makes science science. And one of the crucial aspects of science is that at some point, you have, as a scientist, you have to be willing to climb out on a limb and to make a prediction and test it. And it has to be something which is falsifiable, that you can actually be proven wrong. And if you're not doing that, if it is impossible to do that based on your argument, then you are not doing science. It is even okay if you can predict something that can't be tested now. This is what Einstein did with relativity. There were some experiments or observations that could not be done at the time, but that were in principle possible to do, and we have done them since then with improved technology, and it turned out that Einstein was right. So you can propose some kind of a test that you can't do now. But if it is simply impossible to ever test a prediction based on whatever it is you're talking about, then you're not doing science. And it is simply impossible to make a prediction based on the sentence, God works in mysterious ways. So God works in mysterious ways, or any variation on that theme, means they are admitting that they are not doing science. And you should absolutely pounce on that. You could be, at that point, what you do is you say, thank you very much for making the winning argument on my side. You just scored the winning goal for my side. The match is now over. You just lost. Let's pick up the playing pieces and go home because you just lost and you just admitted it.
I love how it's always...
This is something to not back down on. This is one to absolutely hammer home, keep pushing on it, and just say basically, thanks very much. You just won the argument for me. We can all go home now.
It's always God works in mysterious ways until it's something they want, and then it's really clear.
Well, there's that as well, but anything can be explained simply by saying God works in mysterious ways,
right.
But nothing can be predicted ahead of time.
Now, Abby, have you ever considered another book?
I have considered another book, but I'm not quite sure what it would be about. People have suggested attacking climate change, which would be a very good thing to do, but there are a lot of people out there who are already doing it really well. So I don't know if I would have something to contribute to that. I've thought about writing about cancer because cancer is actually very interesting evolutionarily, and basically cancer is one of those cases of really, really, really bad design.
Right.
And would be very interesting. But right now I've also gotten interested in the gender binary because it's in the news a lot these days, and a lot of people are really being beaten up about the gender binary. And one of the arguments about against the LGBT community and so on is that what they do is not natural. And I'm a zoologist. So right now I'm having fun putting together a new talk basically about why the gender binary does not exist in nature, with lots of fun examples, and I'll talk a little bit about ethics and philosophy as well in that, and basically why atheist ethics are better than religious ethics, because we actually have to justify our ethics based on good rather than based on God, because there's been a whole lot of really nasty stuff done in the world based on the fact that God said it was okay according to some holy book or other. And let's face it, a lot of people have justified some very nasty behavior on that basis, whereas if you start from the assumption that you cannot justify anything based on a belief in the supernatural, your starting point is a better starting point. You don't have a complete moral code yet, but you're starting from a better place. So I want to talk about that as well. Right now, it's just a presentation, a talk that I'm developing, and I don't know where it will go from there, if anything, if anywhere. So I don't know if there's a new book in the works yet or not, but there is a new presentation in the works, which is titled Everything You Know About Sex Is Wrong, Part 1, The Gender Binary.
Oh, I
and
like
we'll
it.
see where that goes.
Now, how can people reach you? Because every once in a while I have people listening to the show that might be helping out or in charge of a conference, whether it's regional or national. How do they reach you to get you to give you one of these talks?
Okay, probably the best thing is just email. I can be found at abby.hafer@gmail.com. That is abby.hafer@gmail.com. I can be found there, and I love getting requests through email. I get quite a few that way, and it's nearly always fun interacting with people who want presentations or are organizing conferences and this kind of thing. So that is just a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, Abby, is there anything we didn't cover that you want to get in here before we wrap up?
I can't think of. Well, I mean, there are tons of things.
I know we could do this all day, but I try to keep my show.
Well, actually, I do want to talk about one thing that is rather important, and that is the subject of denialism.
All right.
And how this is done, because this is done repeatedly, and it's worth recognizing the signs. Okay, denialism is basically a fine art these days. It is a strategy, in fact, that was originally put together formally by the tobacco industry when the scientific reports kept coming out linking tobacco use with cancer.
I see where you're going.
And so the tobacco industry, even though the companies were in competition with one another, they basically all got together and said, this represents an existential threat to our industry. What are we going to do about it? And they came up with basically a strategy for denial. And it has been used ever since by anybody who wants to deny science. And the other thing that's interesting is that the big-time denialists are in bed with each other. They know each other. They hire each other. They have the same funding sources. So the denialist strategy basically looks like this. First of all, the object is to muddy the water, to say the data are not yet clear. yes, some scientists have said that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere leads to global climate change, but not all scientists agree, and the results are uncertain. This is what they said about the link between tobacco use and cancer. This is what they say about evolution, and this is what they say about climate change. You are beginning to get the idea. So they want to create doubt. They want to create uncertainty. They will start a fake institute, which usually has the word institute in it. Rarely, and even though they will make it sound like it is a scientific institute, very rarely do they have any laboratory equipment or do science. What it is a lobbying outfit. And what they will do is hire a few people with PhDs to be their front people so that they can then call for fairness. They can say, if there's a talk show, well, here is, for instance, if it were the tobacco industry, here is Dr. So-and-so from MIT who says that tobacco use is heavily linked with cancer. But here is Dr. So-and-so from the Tobacco Research Institute. Look, another institute. Doesn't that sound really respectable? Who will argue that the results are not yet clear. And by the time Dr. So-and-so at the Tobacco Research Institute is done talking to people on TV, he's generally very nice and generally just says, well, you can't believe the guy from MIT because the results are uncertain and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And by the time they're done, the audience is completely confused.
I think you have your next book idea.
Well, I talk about this in the book that I have. The Not-So-Intelligent Designer has a chapter on denialism, on how this is done. I have the whole strategy in there where it is about, as I said, hiring these folks with PhDs. It's about muddying the water. It is about all those kinds of things that has been done so successfully. It's about smearing and casting into doubt the credentials or the motivations of the scientists who are doing the real research. This is why Michael Mann, the man who famously published the graph showing how global temperature was going up over time and global CO2 levels in the atmosphere were going up exactly at the same time, he published that famous graph known as the hockey stick graph. And the fossil fuel industry, which is very wealthy, basically smeared him, tried to get him removed from his job, and so on. So this is the way they operate, and they make things into a political argument instead of a scientific one, and they will nearly always talk about freedom. Watch for that next time. Freedom is one of those things we love to love.
Right, freedom of expression,
so,
freedom of information.
The tobacco industry would talk about smokers' rights or the freedom to smoke. And for the anti-evolutionists, it will usually be termed academic freedom, that the teachers should have academic freedom. And, of course, with the climate deniers, then it will be, the freedom for businesses to operate as they need to, and the freedom for consumers to consume all of the carbon that they want to, and so on. So when they start talking about freedom, basically it's a diversionary tactic to get away from talking about the data.
Excellent. Well, Abby, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it, and fascinating. And, of course, if you are running a convention, you can, of course, contact Abby. It is abby.hafer at, was it gmail.com?
Gmail.com.
And tell her when and where, and you can work out the arrangements. So, Abby, thanks for being on the Phil Ferguson Show. I greatly appreciate it.
Delighted to talk to you.
Okay,
thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Phil Ferguson Show on Secular Media Network.
Well, it looks like once again I had too much stuff for the show, and we're well over our hour guideline. I don't want to call it a limit or a rule because I keep breaking it. But anyway, that wraps up the show. A couple of things I do want to mention, by the way, is that quite a few people have listened to the show, or they talk to me and we talk about their finances a little bit. which of course you can contact me through email, phil@polarisfinancial